There are two ways to play Spearpoint 1943 with the map expansion. There's a standard game type and a scenario game type. So scenario games are basically within the framework of a set setup. Standard games are more open-ended and have a lot more flexibility with how you can set up what you're going to play. So I'm going to walk you through with this video how to set up a standard game. The first thing you do is choose which map to use, either the village side, as I've chosen here, or the flip side, which is the defensive line side. That also kind of chooses for you the appropriate tile set. You can tell if it's appropriate or not based on the snow. If it's snow, it's for the winter side. So basically, the next thing you're going to do is each player chooses a country to control. If you're playing with Spearpoint 1943 as the base game, it'll be either US or Germany. If you're playing with the Eastern Front base game, it'll be Germany or Russia. So let's go ahead and assume we're using the basic Spearpoint 1943 game, the original, and we've chosen US and Germany as our two sides. So each player chooses which country they're going to control, and then we alternate placement of appropriate feature tiles on the map. So choosing from the tile set, you're going to choose and alternate placement of these tiles in any orientation, as long as it's on center and square with the map space below. So for example, my opponent might place the crops next, and then we just keep going until we place at least 4 tiles onto the map. That's our recommendation. You can of course modify that, but we recommend at least 4 tiles to really give you a bit of terrain rather than just an open area. So as you alternate placement, you don't necessarily know what side you're coming into the map. So it's kind of hard to sway that one way or another. So basically just set up, in this case, a village. So there's a typical Italian village. We've got a center fountain, a church, a cemetery, some ruined buildings, crops, and some intact buildings. So very simple. And that is all you need to do to set up the map and the tiles. Now, each player creates a 100-point maximum, 80-point minimum reserves deck. This is the same as the basic Spearpoint game. Points are in the upper right corner of the cards, and those points have to total up to 100 with a minimum of 80. So I've done that here, and we have 2 reserves decks made, one for the US and one for Germany. The next step is to then alternate choosing a setup space or group of spaces if agreed upon for frontline reinforcements, beginning with the least experienced player. That's the way we like to do it. So the way you're going to mark those setup zones is with these reserved entry points counters, if necessary, or if you just want to remember column 9, for example. This is a good way to mark column 9. You just cover up the 9. And that means that reserves for, say, the Germans have to come into any of these 3 spaces. If it's a particular space, we like to mark it like that, just right in the center. So in other words, we're limited to 2 particular spaces to enter. But you can agree on any space or spaces as the entry points for frontline reinforcements. So once you've set that, now you determine any special objectives for each side, and that could be, for example, take control of the village church. So any special objectives, go ahead and figure that out, or you can use the default standard win conditions, which is basically 51 points or overrun, which is described in the rules. Now, the next thing you're going to do is select a starting hand of 4 initial unit cards from each reserves deck. So each player is going to choose their starting hand. Each one of these cards is a unit card, so let's pick 4. And this is not done randomly, I'm just pulling them off the top to show you. So that might be my starting hand. It's not a very good starting hand, but we would select the 4 cards that we want to use. Same with the Germans, they would go through their deck and select, for example, a tank with a crew and maybe 2 infantry. So that's a starting hand. Now, the next thing you do is shuffle and set aside the 25 card damage deck. I've already done that here. That's a common deck between players. You also shuffle the 50 card command deck and draw 3 command cards per player. Just like the basic Spearpoint 1943 game. So, with that, you have your starting hands, you have the map set up, you have the entry points set wherever they may have been chosen, and you're ready to play. Next step is to begin the turn sequence and start enjoying the game.